My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence, that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state.
Alrighty, this is the U.S. military that's maintaining ongoing aerial surveillance, stalking me in concert with the people of the state that are engaging in 24-hour surveillance as well and further into murder. It's 2:34 a.m. There are no airports. This is relevant context because the U.S. military is already prosecuted, and this is the evidence of treason. All right, but there are no flights from the Ontario International Airport that are not only including the sky space of the Ontario town square, but that are occurring right now or anything at 2:34 a.m. Let alone by flying what is south over the Ontario town square to engage in what is making a U-turn. This is the entity that is stalking me, doing so while they are monitoring me overnight. This is where the entity is maintaining ongoing helicopter activity that I'm documenting. The entity is monitoring me in my sleep. This is demonic. This is relevant to the criminal means of experimentation that the U.S. government engages in while they're monitoring, including overnight. And all I'm doing is capturing these things on video for you. It is demonic. It is also criminal. It is also surveillance. This is P.O.C. This is the U.S. military. These are a bunch of non-elite homosexuals, okay, that have a disorganized, discombobulated, and nonsensical, illogical means, obsessive, ongoing activity that I'm documenting. This is the military. And they're murderers. They're nothing other than stalkers that have decorated themselves and appointed themselves with regard to a hierarchy of position within the military. But they're a bunch of homosexual criminals. And their homosexuality is not a matter of a fetish. It's a matter of mental illness. It's a matter of their criminal conduct where their homosexuality has not helped them. It is the evidence that's going to have them committed. It's relevant context. This is P.O.C. The entity that is gang stalking me is doing so, including where demons like Craig Hazelwood are referring to the municipal code when they are stalking me, knowing where I'm sleeping, monitoring, dressing up as a police officer to engage in pacing around me in light while they are stalking conspicuously. And Craig Hazelwood and Owens are going to federal prison while the U.S. military is gang stalking me in the same exact manner, in concert with that same department, monitoring me, monitoring my breathing and my heart rate and what it is that I'm doing in an unconscious state. This is P.O.C. It is currently 2:37 a.m. at the Ontario Town Square. All right, that's the military stalking at the square. Ontario police. Ontario, the gang members are stalking in police vehicles along Euclid Avenue. They're pacing. They're exhibiting mental illness. They're stalking. And so is license 9 Frank Edward Jerry 511. As well as license plate arriving with light activity as I'm documenting. License 30629 Zebra 2. This is Wells Fargo that's stalking at 240 North Euclid Avenue in Ontario, California. And Ontario police are planted right across the street, gang stalking. It's a male getting in his vehicle, monitoring with the people of the state that are surrounding me. So there, as I'm reading license plates of stalkers, Ontario police are across the street and you'll see them. This is where the military is flying over the venue. This is the Ontario police that are being disbanded, showing that pattern of conduct by that entire agency and showing their mental illness that's shared by that entire agency and the criminal activity that they're engaged in while they've been engaged in simultaneously harassing, stalking, kidnapping, falsely accusing, sexually monitoring. These are the psychopaths that are, and you'll see the images of the Ontario police. They're crossing path. They're at Euclid Family Dentistry, just getting out and talking to the people of the state that are stalking while they're painting and on a ladder. They're monitoring. And you know that because the U.S. military is stalking in commercial planes, Ontario police are getting out and talking to they're stalking in the path. Okay, this is Euclid and B Street, in between Euclid and C Street, where the documentation also shows fake sunrise and set. This is P.O.C. It is 7:21 a.m. Sunday, May 10, 2026. This is where the U.S. military has been maintaining surveillance, like I documented, at 2:30 in the morning. The Ontario police are already shown to be engaging in that, and they're being disbanded because they are leading in what all the people of the state are doing, vagina monitoring. Okay, it's pathetic, and you will not exist as a police department. You're not going to sit around posing as a police department when you're nothing other than a criminal agency. You're a criminal. You're an agent of the U.S. government in criminal activity, and it's pathetic. All right, this is the ongoing support for what is disbanding, which they passed that threshold a long time ago. U.S. military gang stalking through all of the people of the state.
And that includes venues like Wells Fargo that are used for criminal surveillance, like the people of the state are utilizing it right now. P.O.C. Currently, 7:21 a.m. They're on surveillance cameras at Wells Fargo, engaging in transactions with them, and it's criminal activity. It's a federal RICO. P.O.C. See Ontario Police with the U.S. military vehicle 1127. And Ontario Police are particularly psychotic. These demons are pacing repeatedly, like every 2 minutes. Every time I look up, in other words, another demon in an Ontario Police vehicle stalking. All right, this is going to the mental illness of that agency. Remember, this is demonic, so this isn't just casually crossing path. This is monitoring by demons that are on the roads and the highways, in the same way that you're witnessing it, as I'm breaking down, monitoring by demons in the sky space. And this is the U.S. military's concoction of how they decide to levy war against American citizens. And all aspects of that system are being extinguished, okay? The Ontario Police Department are engaging in terrorism while they're stalking in this psychotic manner, with the U.S. military that's maintaining aerial surveillance right here at the square, flying repeatedly over the El Bacon while I'm at the Ontario Town Square. You know where they're doing that, while I'm at a particular angle at the square, when I'm nearest, in other words, on the opposite side of the large clock that's basically in the center of the square. That's when the entity is flying over the center of the property, okay, which I've documented. And the entity is engaging in what is showing you what is relevant positioning. The positioning of the planes is relevant to where I'm located. They are literally stalking my position, not just stalking. And you know that it's beyond stalking, it's psychotic, because you already know where I'm at. So what's the purpose of flying over it repeatedly? Psychotic behavior, monitoring, okay? That's P.O.C. Okay, you're looking at Ontario Police engaged in the same conduct. This is, again, Mike Lorenz's mental illness. Everybody that I've documented, the psychopaths at the Stater Brothers, they share the pattern of conduct. They are serving to diagnose themselves. And this is, again, the ongoing criminal conspiracy to murder by the agency in concert with the U.S. military. While they, like I stated before, this is the entity that's engaged in that. So the entity that's providing that evidence regarding its own secret about its mental illness, it's not a secret. You are all apprised of it while you're witnessing the prosecution of the U.S. government that's engaging in terrorism in the United States. You are witnessing the evidence that they provided against themselves regarding how terrorists like Mike Lorenz are going to be treated. They're going to be treated in the same way that any other unstable mental health patient is going to be treated. That's a threat that's going to be neutralized. You're not going to bear weapons. You're not going to be a part of law enforcement. You're not going to be able to go around like a sociopath, a psychopath that wants to be treated as though you're serious, and sane, when you're nothing other than a raging lunatic. And that's what you're getting while the entity's pacing in planes with Ontario Police vehicles and comes with the people of the state. They're pacing all together. All right, this is P.O.C. This is the entity that's doing so while they are listening to me document. The psychopaths repeated in real time. That's the pattern of the mentally ill. And it is self-destructive with regard to having a failed, it's going in a courtroom. So the entity is always admitting to, yes, they're guilty. And yes, they repeat in real time what it is that I'm stating. That's corroborating exactly what it is that I'm describing that they're doing. All the demons are doing are confirming what it is that I am documenting about them targeting. It is currently 7:34 a.m. This is P.O.C. Okay, it is currently looks like 7:48 a.m. So the images that I'm taking of the people of the state, you're looking at what is relevant positioning. They are parking at 240 North Euclid Avenue, which is stalking, because 240 North Euclid Avenue is in relevant position while the people of the state are gang stalking at that venue, which is Wells Fargo. The people of the state are stalking with the U.S. military, stalking at the ATM. You'll see a male with black shorts on, a white t-shirt, and a dark blue hoodie and a black hat. His license plate is 9 Victor Larry Paul 359. He is engaged in criminal activity using the transaction of a Wells Fargo ATM. is evidence to prosecute him for gang stalking. This is what the entity is engaged in with Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is going to be prosecuted as a facilitating venue, engaging in the corrupt system with the city of Ontario. This is why the business has the fake sun from sunrise until sunset over it, and everybody that works inside of that venue, and that venue, whether it is open or closed, is, as I'm documenting now, being used by the U.S. military and the city of Ontario, the people of the state, to gang stalk. Wells Fargo is being prosecuted. The people of the state that are stalking via Wells Fargo are being prosecuted, and they're doing so while the entity is monitoring. So as I am zipping up my backpack, homosexuals that are psychotic are already lurking in the commercial planes, which are the people of the state. U.S. military doesn't belong in any Southwest Airlines UPS planes. That's what they're using to engage in what is hovering, meaning the U.S. military thought that it was a good idea and thought that they were elite and covert by maintaining ongoing public nuisances with these commercial airline companies. And they have created what is the basis to prosecute these corporate entities for criminal monitoring, which is levying war while they are stalking with the U.S. government, providing instrumentalities of interstate commerce in doing so, the basis of a federal RICO case. And also it is treason under Article 3, Section 3, while they are making money at that. And this is what the entity is doing while the people of the state engage in stalking. This is not clever at all. So all they do is they are pulling up to the bank while the entity is stalking. And by stalking, I mean the stalking conduct pursuant to monitoring. So they're stalking when they create the audible activity. Well, they're already stalking. Okay? They're psychotic. They engage in making noise while they're stalking. They engage in showing themselves while they're stalking. They engage in doing it in the engineer light. They're already stalking, already know where you're at. What is the purpose between the ongoing incessant plane after plane, helicopter, psychopathic pacing? What's the purpose behind one police vehicle after another? These are mentally ill people they're not humans. These are demons. Demons are not going to be in law enforcement. Ontario police are done. And they've been an ongoing advertisement regarding the categorical assessment regarding mental illness that's engaged in what is levying war against an American citizen, which is how domestic terrorism is executed by the U.S. military. Flaming homosexuals that hate American citizens based on their demon possession, that is their mental illness, whereby I am prosecuting criminal activity, which they are necessarily doing in concert with the people that's giving them commercial airline planes, that's targeting throughout the municipalities, that's going and stalking at these venues, these establishments that are gang stalking with them. And the entity is doing so, proven a criminal cooperation, while a whole fake sun remains over all of the psychopaths together. The entity is engaging in this together, and they're doing so while I'm merely zipping up my backpack. And this is the entity. This is what you're mindful of, because this is what they're doing when I'm pulling down my panties in the bathroom. This is what they're doing when I am engaged in what is private activity in the bathroom, and the sex offender at the Wells Fargo ATM is fully apprised of that. And your knowledge of that sex offender and what their actual purpose is that a fake sun, a fake moon is remaining over that venue where they're engaging in a transaction which is going to be used to prosecute them. Because the entity is engaging in what is stalking with light customarily, which is going to be used to prosecute them. While the people of the state, in other words, have provided a paper trail with regard to how they're engaged in what is levying war against an American citizen. And they have not done it intelligently. They've done it obsessively, which is going to be used to diagnose them. This is diagnosis via prosecution. And the people of the state are gang stalking. Okay, this is occurring at what is 7:53 a.m. This is exactly what I'm documenting at Ladini and Euclid Avenue yesterday morning, where the entity is gang stalking, and Ontario police, these are psychopaths. And while they're psychotic, I'm walking down the street, and so is the fake sun over me. Okay, this is all of the entity that is stalking, and it does so into the city of Upland. So as I am documenting that, the entity that's engaged in so much stalking conduct, I'm documenting the fact that the sex offenders, who are the people of the state, one day they're engaged in the psychotic behavior of molesting with impossible light, and the next day they want to stand at the Wells Fargo ATM as though anyone forgot about that body of evidence, as anyone forgot that a population is targeting, and as though you're not, the next day, because the fake sun is covered up, someone's supposed to forget that. This is the evidence that's going to be used to document them, to diagnose them. Even that is relevant to severe mental instability. No one forgot about that. You are openly volunteering to be prosecuted as a terrorist. And that's exactly what's happening. And that's exactly what you want. You want me to show you the terrorists who are a threat to the public while these idiots walk right into the net? That is the federal prosecution for them, as I identify them. Because what I'm documenting on my podcast is nothing that the federal government that is going to be levying a response with regard to what this entity sought to do against an American citizen. You're levying war in the United States. You're levying war in the United States as a people. And the federal government is strategically, not what this is not strategic. The federal government is strategically going to respond to that. That's what the United States does, by the way. No country is going to confront the United States and engage in provocation without a response. That's what you do as a superpower. You respond to that. And you make sure that they understand you don't ever engage in that against the United States. But that's what's happening. But the entities engage in that, and they're doing it against American citizens. American citizens that don't have military training, but neither do these vagina monitors of the people of the state. That's why these idiots are so easily documented. But then again, these so-called military personnel, this so-called tactical forces, I'm perplexed at the level of asinine and the level of instability that is just overt. The level of incompetence, the level of the lack of control with regard to having any sort of strategy. These are psychopathic stalkers. And you've seen how, in other words, these are unstable creatures who engage in what are letting loose, all right? When they think no one is watching, when they can show their true nature, and they are showing the Neanderthals that they actually are, lacking any strategy, lacking any ability to control themselves, and act like they're not stalkers, act like they're not engaging in what is something that is on its face improper. Okay, the entities engaging in that with a population of psychopaths who are sex offenders, they're stalkers, they're thieves, they're criminals. Okay, they are mentally ill while they practice this as a society. So this is what an entity's maintaining ongoing business practices. This is every business in the city of Ontario is corrupt by virtue of what the city of Ontario is engaging in. And the city of Ontario is engaging in it on behalf of the U.S. military. And the entity is engaging in this while I am doing the most minute things. And this is what you're taking into the bathroom. Me zipping up my backpack is relevant to me taking my panties down, which is also public information. It's also something that's very much notable regarding what she's doing. Let's go ahead and with another plane. This is psychotic behavior, and it's sexually perverted. And it's pursuant to what is exceeding mere stalking, which would be crazy enough. It would be crazy enough. Okay? This is the P.O.C. This is including what is mental illness that is relevant to the city police department that's going to no longer exist. 7 Frank Larry Zebra 723 at 240 North Euclid Avenue. 2 males gang stalking at the transactions of the ATM machine on surveillance camera, while the psychopathic pacing along Euclid Avenue. It includes third party license plate 8 Kelly Henry Yolanda 780 P.O.C. Okay, this is the entity that's engaging in that pattern of conduct together while they are stalking. U.S. military are maintaining ongoing psychopathic behavior. This is beyond stalking, meaning, again, like I stated, this is how you're understanding what is the purpose. Think about it, because you're stalking me. So that's following. That's the definition of stalking, following from place to place. I'm not going anywhere. So you're following me here. What is the point of the plane after plane? What is the point of because this isn't traffic either. This is surveillance. They're making sure that they keep crossing paths. And you know the significance, the truth of that, because this is where they keep a fake sun over me while they continuously are crossing paths. This is giving context to everything that's happening in that environment and why it's happening. And the fact that it's happening is specific to what it is that one person is doing. The person against whom the United States is levying war. And the Constitution
does under all circumstances recognize the fact that an American citizen that's being gang stalked is, first of all, representative of a population that is under threat by the U.S. military that's engaging in that against American citizens. Moreover, the U.S. Constitution is also designed to protect even one American citizen against whom the United States is levying war in concert with the people of the state. So it's protecting one single American citizen against whom the United States is targeting, and it is also protecting what is that population that American citizen is representative of. This is Article 3, Section 3. This is very much levying war while the U.S. military are engaging what are using military aircrafts. They're stalking in planes and helicopters. They're doing so with the population that's engaging in what is failing at maintaining that mask of society. It's supposed to just look like, oh, I'm just going to work, or I'm just living in my house, I'm just walking out to my front yard, I'm just painting the business outside, I'm just driving down the street, I'm just walking my dog, I'm just working in the library, I'm just working in the bank, I'm just working in the fast food restaurant. And it's the military, the U.S. government, that's maintaining criminal surveillance in furtherance of murdering anyone whom they target, in furtherance of kidnapping anyone whom they target. And it takes what is the American citizen that is subject to this. It takes one like myself in order to expose what the U.S. military is doing. Okay, so I just want to make sure that that's clear. And the entity is doing so to its own demise. They're losing custody of their children while they're engaged in sacrificing others. They're losing their own liberty while they're engaged in kidnapping others. They're losing what is their ability to maintain a reputation as saying, no, they're not. And they're not law-abiding citizens while they're engaged in what is the psychotic pattern of conduct of gang stalking. Doing so as a city. This is P.O.C. And this is exactly like I stated, while the entity is doing so in Ontario, this is what they're doing in Upland. This is what they're doing in Fontana. This is what they're doing in Pomona. This is what they're doing in Montclair. Criminal monitoring. License plate. Stalking on the roads and the highways. 8 Xavier, Edward, Robert 557. 8 Charlie 42617. 9 Robert Jerry 490. And the entity at the Wells Fargo. Again, the same pattern. 04452 Charlie 2. Please. 04452 Charlie 2. Okay? Walking to and from, that's the pacing. Walking to and from to the ATM. The vehicle lights as you open and close your door, as you turn off and you're pulling up your brake light, that's all light activity. And they're engaging in that together with the entity that is stalking and maintaining plane activity. And this is what they're doing west of this location. I've already analyzed this. You're stalking, as you can see, my evidence that's published on YouTube. Okay? What the entity is doing in Fontana, California, while there's not even an airport in Fontana, and you certainly aren't landing from Fontana, when they're acting like they're landing over the El Pollo Loco at the Ontario Village Shopping Center. And I've also documented that they act like they're landing right here at the amphitheater. And I've also documented the fact that they're acting like they're landing at the Chevron, and that they're acting like they're landing while they're lowering in elevation at the downtown Ontario luxury apartments right here at Euclid Avenue. But you have them engaging in the pattern of conduct. Southwest Airlines, in fact, stalking with the Fontana Police Department under the fake sun at Orange Way and Sierra Avenue, while you're mindful of this entity that's providing this evidence against themselves, against Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo deserves to be prosecuted, though. They're not innocent. While the entity uses evidence to prosecute Wells Fargo, because they're all defendants put against each other in court. Wells Fargo against Ontario Police, against the U.S. military that's using commercial planes, which is putting the people of the state, those companies, against the U.S. military. They all have differing interests in court. They're all being pit against each other while they're targeting together. Okay? This is an entity that has been outmaneuvered intellectually while they are engaging in this is foolish conduct, what they're doing now, and it's going to be used against all of them. Wells Fargo is gang stalking on an ongoing basis with impunity. With impunity. They're gang stalking employees. I've documented them. So they're engaging in that on an ongoing basis. They're doing so while I'm in the OVITT Family Community Library, and they're doing so while they're making money. As a corrupt banking institution that needs to be prosecuted and shut down, they're violating your privacy. They're in violation of existing federal laws, which serve an illusion that you don't have privacy in the first place. Wells Fargo deserves to be prosecuted and shut down, because that's what's happening. While the entity is gang stalking and including Wells Fargo. It's inevitable. These demons are engaging in what are destroying themselves, and they're also compensating me while they are being pit against one another, while they're gang stalking together. There is no system. I'm exposing and exploiting their so-called
Teamwork, they're working against each other. 7 George Kelly Apple, 389. They're all working against each other. And in court, they all have differing interests. All of them. They don't have anything in common. License 4, Apple, Nancy Xavier, B, Bob, 82. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that's doing that. This is exactly what I'm documenting, like I stated at Ladini. Well, you will see the fake sun in the morning where Ontario police are stalking. Where Ontario police are stalking, the people of the state are stalking. And you know that because the fake sun that is over me at that 9 a.m. hour is over me at 6, I believe 44 p.m. at that same address where I took a picture, and you can see the screenshot of what's happening in the morning where that agency, which is exactly what's happening now. The fake sun documentation is giving you a vivid illustration regarding the fact of a society of stalkers. A society of stalkers are levying war against an American citizen, while the U.S. military goes out of its way to attack American citizens in the way in which they have unsuccessfully done so to me, which with regard to what is being prosecuted, with regard to being imprisoned. Okay, these are terrorists, not the United States military. In the same way that the people of the state do not hold the same position that they do under the Constitution, under the preamble. That is not who the people of the state are anymore. This is an entity that's engaging in what is domestic terrorism, and the U.S. military is a terrorist in the United States. That's a domestic terrorist. And the United States military are terrorists throughout the world. This is global, what it is that I'm exposing in California. The U.S. military murders people around the world with regard to targeting them in the way and for the purposes that I've shown you that the U.S. military has targeted me. The U.S. military is also highly unintelligent and has provided a trail in the way that I'm prosecuting. It's going to be used to prosecute them and expose them around the globe with regard to others that they've murdered, others that they have targeted. That's how unintelligent they are. And in the United States, I have broken down gang stalking, and this is not going to happen secretly under any circumstances. They don't have any choice but to be exposed. Okay, and even in that, you see their mental illness, because no sane person or no sane people would engage in it in front of everyone. It was supposed to be a myth. Okay, the U.S. military has lost in every regard, including the fact that you all know that they're raging homosexuals. And that is relevant to their demonic possession, their mental illness. It's not a fetish. It's not some sexual preference. It's because they're mentally ill. And they associate their perverted sex acts with regard to targeting other people. And that's where you get into flying plane after plane after plane. They're psychotic. They're monitoring. P.O.C. It is currently 8:06 a.m. So, first of all, this is Bethel congregation, where hours from now, the fake sun is still over me, where the congregants at this demonic establishment, which is engaged in the criminal activity, which the government is telling that U.S. military that's deviating from any airport, in other words, exposing its co-defendant, the mask that the U.S. military was supposed to be wearing is exposed as a mask. And that mask that are the people of the state are going to be prosecuted as treasonous co-conspirators of murder with that entity that is using commercial airline companies. Now, you can hear the plane activity, but that's no takeoff. Okay. I've already been through this neighborhood, the housing neighborhood, and they're all gang stalking. That's why the U.S. military is flying over their homes where there's no airport, doing so in the direction west, also doing so notably at the venue of the 537 North Euclid Avenue. Is the bus stop, documented sunrise, sunset activity. Literally the other day where Southwest Airlines is gang stalking when I'm walking from Upland. This is the back parking lot side of what I've already shown you on Euclid Avenue. The bus stop is a vantage point of evidence that you've already witnessed. The sunrise, it's currently 9:48 a.m. That's already prosecution for the specific environment. But you have the sunset at the same venue where I am showing you the fake sun, where the entity is engaged in that. And this is getting to then everybody that goes inside of the building of the fake church is gang stalking, which you already know that. That's why you have Pastor Lee gang stalking me with the U.S. military using military jets as I walk out of this venue, doing so while the fake sun's outside of the door, and doing so with helicopters during the midst of a Bible study. Right, when we were pontificating the depths of evil. All right, this is the P.O.C. This is the U.S. military that's engaged using a military aircraft. That's a jet, doing so under the fake sun, This is the entity that's going to be prosecuted as engaging in terrorism in the United States against American citizens in concert with the people of the state who want to be mistaken as being protected under the Constitution as well. They're not. This is a third party that's monitoring. This is a psychopath. She's Pastor Jeanette. She's not a pastor. She's not even a Christian. She's not even human. She's a demon, and she's monitoring. You see, immediately she starts smiling and waving. That's a psychopath that is conspiring my murder. And the fake son over this fake church is the evidence of that. I'm going to prosecute her. All right. It is currently 9:49 a.m. This is P.O.C. This is indicative of what the entire city is engaged in while it's underway at a fake church. Okay. It is currently, good morning. That's malice. Alrighty. This is the entity that's engaging in that level of conduct, and these are the license plates of those that are inside engaged in what is monitoring in a bathroom, sex offenders, calling themselves pastors. The entity is stalking by flying over the St. George Catholic Church, which is not even, this is the entity that's just blatantly stalking, and I'm just showing how there is no distinction with regard to the type of venue: the bathroom, the church, the library, the mall, the grocery store, the freeway. Okay, this is the entity, the city hall, the courthouse, the police department. All right, the people of the state where they live. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:50 a.m. This is the people of the state that are being prosecuted for committing treason. This is levying war, and they're engaging in that with the government that is maintaining what I'm documenting here, aerial surveillance. And while they're present engaging in that conduct, they're doing so in furtherance of murder. And smiling is relevant to what is malicious and psychopathic, not innocent. Okay? This is P.O.C. It is 9:50 a.m. Alrighty, it is currently 12:07 p.m. And as I stood in the same parking lot and Pastor Jeanette, not only is the notion of a female pastor not within any scripture, but it's also speaking to the fact that she's a gang stalker, which is also satanic, and that's clearly in violation of scripture. It's also in violation of the law. The fake son that's here, while they're monitoring with the demon possessed that are outside of the walls of the church, engaging in criminal activity with the U.S. military, is gang stalking with that. Okay? That's the U.S. military gang stalking with that, and the U.S. military gang stalking with the fake Christians and the entity engaging in what is using religion as a guise for conspiracy to murder. And that's what's relevant regarding the video where you see the U.S. military using a jet and the U.S. military using commercial airline planes. That was during approximately 9:44 a.m. It's 12. My documentation has the fake son over me while I'm at the bus stop on the opposite side of this building, where these fake Christians know that I'm sleeping outside, and they do not know Christ. There is no burden in their heart to help the homeless. They're gang stalking the targeted individual. I'm only homeless with regard to cloaking myself in order to prosecute demons. These are the people of the state that are gang stalked with the U.S. military while they're amplifying plane activity, engaging in psychological torture, and then talking about the women that gave birth to them, cursing each and every one of them, and I'm prosecuting them. This is P.O.C. under the fake son at 536 North Euclid Avenue. See how it remains over me in the parking lot? That's where the U.S. military was stalking with aircrafts in furtherance of murder, psychological torture. This is not Christ's church. This is Satan's church. This is Pastor Jeanette, 9 Edward Zebra Sam 749, smiling while she's conspiring murder. That's a psychopath, and that's the demon possessed. Alrighty, this is the P.O.C. They're inside of the building, monitoring with minor children that are engaged in the criminal conspiracy to murder. And the fake son is moving around the building with me. And the relevant documentation regarding F, where I've documented the fake son rising over me while the people of the state are gang stalking me as I would sleep at a bus stop. It's P.O.C. It is currently 12:09 p.m. That's Union Pacific, while the people of the state that feign a relationship with Christ Jesus in order to maintain the corrupt businesses in the U.S. regarding churches that are engaged in the state's criminal pattern of conduct of criminal surveillance. P.O.C. This is the entity led by the U.S. military that's stalking, following now from Bethel Congregation to OVITT Family Community Library, replete with the fake sun, which you know is simultaneously remaining stationary over me while demons are stalking inside of the Upland Public Library, which is where the fake sun remained as a matter of evidence. 24 hours. All right, it is right over the top of my head where the U.S. military are using commercial airline planes to engage in criminal surveillance, psychological torture with regard to what is exceeding mere stalking, and the U.S. military's levying of war against an American citizen that's prosecuting them. And they are, in fact, mentally ill, and they're still engaging in that while they have lost in their initiation of war against an American citizen. They are still engaging in that criminal pattern of conduct, and so are the people of the state who are going to be met with prison terms as well and prosecuted as terrorists. They're all sitting inside of the OVITT Family Community Library, where this U.S. military is stalking me at 7 in the morning and the fake sun is here. The people that stayed inside of the OVITT Family Community Library are levying war with the U.S. military that's maintaining criminal presence in concert with them, literally by working at the library, going in and out of the library, where they are exceeding mere stalking, they're engaging in criminal monitoring, and they're maintaining obsessive surrounding, like the demon on the bench outside of the Ontario City Hall. You'll see that demon captured. It's a female at 1:25 p.m. under the fake sun. This is what the entity is doing. She is stalking with light. You're looking at the same thing in the morning where the African-American female with the mop on her head, pacing around me on the golf cart, is engaging in stalking with light as well. These are methods of the same conduct in concert with the U.S. military. This is P.O.C. It is currently 1:26 p.m. This is Southwest Airlines. This is P.O.C. Southwest Airlines is engaged in what is targeting me. This is the fake sun that's over me where I stand in the morning at the Page One Cafe end of the OVITT family. That's called Crossing Path. That's a gang stalker. And this is the same one engaging in battery at the Methodist Church, another gang stalking church, where I've shown you they're engaging in the pattern of conduct, engaging what is hitting me and concert on behalf of the U.S. military that's stalking in planes and helicopters. This is the entity doing so under the fake sun. He's under the fake sun that I'm documenting. That was Saturday morning at 10 o'clock in the morning. They were lined up right here, and this fake sun was over me at the entrance. If you recall that documentation, you'll recall the documentation where the Southwest Airlines is gang stalking, where the entity is keeping this fake sun where it's rising at 7 a.m. And that is Southwest Airlines that is specifically targeting me in Montclair, California, and Los Angeles, California, and Fontana, California, targeting me while I am maintaining an ongoing body of evidence that Southwest Airlines in particular is keeping under surveillance. And Southwest, in furtherance of murdering me, is maintaining also an unabated program of psychological torture. This is Southwest Airlines that's going to be prosecuted for treason in concert with the homosexuals that are flying, stalking me in Southwest Airline planes, which Southwest Airlines headquartered in Dallas is providing to the military in furtherance of murdering me. That's a corporate entity that's engaging in domestic terrorism, and it shall be prosecuted for treason. This is the entity that's doing so in this environment where you're looking at the fake sun that's right here over me, where I stand. In the same way as I cross path, right, all the demons that are stalking, Wells Fargo, the fake sun's over me this morning while they're all at the teller. And the fake sun is there. Wells Fargo 240 North Euclid Avenue. This fake sun is moving over me. Southwest Airlines is stalking a very specific person. I'm going to prosecute that terrorist that's masking itself under a corporate entity, okay, or as a corporate entity. This is where the entity is maintaining that pattern of conduct. If you'll recall, first of all, this is the demon committing a battery in concert with the demons that are gang stalking at the Methodist Church at I Street in Euclid, where they are targeting me on behalf of the U.S. military, which is an act of terrorism, and it's no small thing. You're going to prison when you are engaged in any form of harm, which is exacerbating the criminal pattern of conduct where you're gang stalking and furtherance of murder already. And he is engaged in battery. And then the demons that are serving food at that fake church in Ontario under the fake sun is then repeating that act of battery while they're engaging in the gang violence. As you document one demon engaging in an act, they will all repeat it. They do so in that specific environment. These are the mentally ill that engage in sharing a criminal pattern of conduct. They are the same demonic entity, meaning you're dealing with the same mentally ill spirit that is possessing a group of people. Okay, that's what the government is doing, and that's what's possessing, by the way, the U.S. military that are gang stalking, and they're going to be prosecuted as treasonous terrorists that are engaging in the pattern of conduct, and they're still engaging in that. That's relevant to the ways in which terrorists that are the U.S. military are going to be prosecuted in the United States. All right, also relevant, Southwest Airlines is targeting where there are no scheduled flights. This is the reflection of what is on the Ontario website regarding departures. And you have what is currently 3:54 p.m. And so the flight toward Phoenix, that will be flight number WN566, where the entity is maintaining the same pattern of conduct under the fake sun. That's not a flight to any destination while they're hovering over the senior center, where no flights from the airport they're flying outside of the zoning provisions in doing so. The entity is engaged in targeting me under the fake sun also. They're doing so also while they're monitoring the evidence. This is a psychopath that is an entity, okay, while you're describing the mental illness. This is psychopathic while you're engaging in more stalking conduct, and you're doing so because you are hostile toward the evidence that you're stalking in the first place. That is the character of the criminal conduct of Southwest Airlines, the entity that's co-conspiring murder with the U.S. military. Alrighty, this is the U.S. military targeting. This is what I captured in the morning in video, where the people of the state were lined up around the same venue where I'm at right now, and this was at 9:54 in the morning. Video ended at 9:58 a.m. The fake sun is still remaining over me right now, where the entity is flying outside of what's published on the website, showing all manner of targeting. And the entity has the fake sun as I arrived today at that says 1:08 p.m. And this is where the U.S. military are using planes provided to it by the people of the state. That is corporate entities, people that are at the heads of these companies, like corporate headquarters in Dallas, Texas. I hope you hear me talking to you, because I'm prosecuting you, and I will federally prosecute you for criminal activity. You will not merely be paying me money. You will be prosecuted for criminal acts that airline is representative of while they're stalking me under a fake sun that could not possibly be anywhere in Texas, let alone in the sunshiny state of Dallas. While you are acting through the U.S. military that's targeting me in California. I hope you're paying attention, because I'm prosecuting you. It is currently 3:56 p.m. This is indeed where that entity is targeting, okay? And this is where the entity is targeting me with Mike LORENZ. This is where the entity is targeting me with Michael GERKEN, all right? Where the government is, that is the city of Ontario that's targeting in furtherance of murder. And that is the entire population that shares in that, which is terrorism. And under the Constitution, under the language of the Constitution, you're understanding how gang stalking is treason committed by the U.S. military that's targeting through a population, and they're all demons. This is the beast system. All right, and this is the entity engaged in that, and they're doing that while the case has already been proven. And this is speaking to the fact that they're not just going to prison. Those that are subject to prison, they're not just going to prison, but they will not be getting out of prison. Okay, this is P.O.C. It is currently 3:57 p.m. This is criminal monitoring by the United States government and the city of Ontario. Sirens start under the fake sun that's still right here over me, where the military were stalking by helicopter, and where the entity is stalking Southwest Airlines, which is the U.S. military as well, stalking by commercial planes, doing so at 5:50 p.m. These are the psychopaths that are going to be committed. You're listening to lawlessness in the face of being prosecuted. Michael GERKEN, American Medical Response, Mike LORENZ, Alan D. WAPNER, the entity that's engaged in the criminal monitoring system, and this is all over a Google account. They're willing to go to federal prison and be committed over a Google account. This is the fake sun. This is mental illness. This is the blatant pattern of conduct. It is currently 5:50 p.m. The entity is monitoring on my device. That's the significance of this scientific phenomenon over this address. That's the phenomenon that it's over 215 E.C. Street, over me at 215 E.C. Street, in the same way it is at 9 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, where the entity is rising it here, and it's still here, where you're looking at that pattern of stalking. The entity is keeping my device under surveillance, and my device is key in what is the prosecution of the U.S. military that's going to be prosecuted for treason, right? And the entity is engaging what is surveillance on my device in concert with the people of the state. That's a demon that's stalking in the path. The significance of the engineer light, conspicuous surveillance and furtherance of murdering right in my face. And this is what the U.S. military does with the population. The population of vagina monitors that are using fire trucks and ambulances and police vehicles right now, while they are, again, emulating an emergency. The emergency is that I'm prosecuting them, that I'm using my phone. That's why they are going to be federally prosecuted and subject to mental examinations. The mentally ill that are the demon possessed have no business in these positions. This is the prosecution of Paul Leon. The city hall is right here, where I'm showing you the fake sun, both in the morning and this is the evening at 5:51 p.m. Okay, the entity is engaged in what is monitoring on my device as I'm creating 2 more additional accounts, Google account number 282, Google account number 283, and as I turn this device on, the Android, the entity is immediately pursuant to what is hovering stalking conduct, pursuant to surveillance on all devices. You're under surveillance where you live, as you travel, everywhere that you go, and on the internet, including any devices that you use. That's what's relevant to what is criminal summoning, okay? And that is shown through the specific environment. And these are vagina monitors that are stalking in plain view. This is psychopathic conduct. They're driving out of Sarah's Regis, I'm going to prosecute. They're in the parking lot of Wells Fargo, I'm going to prosecute. This is at the Ontario Civic Center, the City of Ontario, that I'm going to prosecute. And they're gang stalking with regard to the City of Ontario sounding sirens, monitoring on my device, which directly impacts the ability to use the internet, unimpeded use of the internet, which you have a right to. The U.S. military that wants to murder you and keep your genitalia under surveillance doesn't have a legitimate government interest in doing that. That's the problem. And the government, the U.S. government, the City of Ontario, the people of the state are doing this in concert with those that are even outside of the United States right now, aware of what's going on my device right now, interested in blocking the creation of a Google account to maintain evidence to prosecute the U.S. government, the domestic terrorists, the people of the state, while they're sharing in this criminal pattern of conduct outside of the jurisdiction of the U.S. And that's how the demons in Ontario, sounding sirens, are being federally prosecuted for treason, which is directly impacting the prosecution of an entire entity. This is P.O.C. This is where Southwest Airlines was gang stalking. It was during the pattern of conduct where the entity is maintaining this light source, and they're doing so while they're keeping my device under surveillance. So, all right, this is Southwest Airlines that's gang stalking at the same location. It's 5:54 p.m. This is 3:57 p.m. This is what the entity was doing, monitoring me. This is Southwest Airlines. This is P.O.C. Southwest Airlines is engaged in what is targeting me. This is the morning at the Page One Cafe in the BLVD family. That's called where the fake sun remains right now. That was 3:57, 4 p.m. It's 5:54. It's about to be 6 p.m. and it's at the same location over the same person. They're stalking right in front of your face. You are under surveillance by everyone, everywhere. And the criminal pattern of conduct, the federal prosecution of the U.S. government, sex offenders that are conspiring your murder, their prosecution is sure under the law, which is not going to be based on their acknowledging you, them acting like the fact that they are demonstrating the fact that they don't care that they're going to prison, because that's what they're doing when they're laughing, coking and joking like nothing is happening. They're going to be committed with that evidence. It is not evidence of innocence or ignorance. It's evidence of mental illness, of malice, of cruelty, inhumanity. The entity is engaging in that pattern of conduct, and this is what's going to prosecute you. The government that's stalking here is what's going to prosecute you. The entity, and they are in fact mentally ill anyway, but the entity is engaging in a whole manner of what is, oh, if they all act like nothing is happening, this is what the government literally planned. Just like the homosexuals that are stalking in commercial planes, and they really thought that it was a good idea, and that's more discreet than the military jets. It is as obvious as stalking in a military jet when you have Southwest Airlines, UPS, American Airlines, United Airlines, all of the commercial companies flying over 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, any time of day where the airport does not maintain any flights, and you're flying literally over the old people. There are no planes and helicopters that are going to fly over senior citizen complex. This is the United States military. And you know why it's so unintelligent, why I'm able to easily embarrass and humiliate these demons, these vagina monitors? Because they typically murder the subject, the target. All right, this is what is out here betraying American citizens, and I am prosecuting it. And they are also making up shareholders, and they're making up what are boards, and they're making up what are company ownership, where they are I'm prosecuting the entire board, I'm prosecuting the shareholders, I'm prosecuting the owners while these corporate entities are engaging in the pattern of conduct. I'm prosecuting all of you at the same time. In the same way that your facial expression is not going to be a defense, it's not going to be relevant. It'll only be relevant with regard to the way in which you engaged in criminal activity that's already shown. This is P.O.C. That's the entity that's engaged in criminal summoning, and it's the prosecution of Paul Leon. Okay, the Ontario City Hall has the fake sun rising and setting outside of its doors. Paul Leon's a monitoring demon. He is an enemy of the state, and he is targeting with the U.S. military that's engaged in psychopathic and highly unintelligent criminal conduct. And this is the U.S. military that has threatened and betrayed American citizens. And they are not elite. They are not sophisticated. They are not the best and brightest whatsoever. They're demons. Okay, and they're threatened by my Google account. This is the pattern of conduct. It is currently 5:57 p.m. This is the entity that's already been prosecuted for treason. And this is the entity that's engaged in that. That's United Airlines. And it's 5:57 p.m. The entities engaged in this, the Housing and College of Laverne, University of Laverne College of Law, they're not maintaining any sort of accredited basis. They're not going to be a law school. Paul Leon's not going to be in office. This is the Ontario Civic Center used for corruption. It's going to be defunded. This is going to turn into a very real ghetto. It's going to be gutted out. Okay? The entity that wants to come outside and gang stalk someone, you don't have anything else to do. You're literally not going to have anything to do. They're going to be locked down regarding martial law. This is the pattern of conduct, and somebody's Google account is going to be the last thing on their minds with regard to the absence of any ability to do anything or go anywhere when they are isolated from the rest of the American public, like the animals they have shown themselves to be. Stalking conspicuously is what the United States military just did, and this is an act of war, and it's communicated to you, those of you who are witnessing. It's no small thing. This is how the entity, that is the U.S. government, considers your constitutional rights. This is how they consider you as a human being with God-given rights. This is how they treat the Constitution as something that you wipe up fecal matter with, while they are violating your rights while I'm documenting them targeting me. I hope you understand that. You are not just engaged in what is witnessing barbarism by a bunch of minions. You're witnessing what is a threat to the American public, and that threat is going to be neutralized. This is criminal surveillance, federal stalking under Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2. That's the significance of the supernatural environment and presence in that environment, which is accomplishing criminal monitoring. That's existing law. The entity is going to be prosecuted under ways in which the pattern of conduct by the demon-possessed U.S. military need to be recognized under federal law. This is P.O.C. All right, and this is the state in concert with the U.S. government monitoring. And it is the axiomatic removal of the domestic terrorist Paul Leon, the Ontario City Council, that are engaged in what are treason. This is P.O.C. All right, that's called psychopathic pacing under the fake sun. They're doing the same thing at 7 in the morning under this fake sun at this same address. And they are aiding in what are putting people just like Mickey in federal prison. Mickey's going to prison. You have the gang stalking Securitas, they're going to federal prison. The security guards that are stalking, wearing security, they're going to prison. The demons that are engaging in what are arriving in the morning, giving me a letter about how Sean Thrasher says that, lying about my character, he's going to prison. This is how unintelligent they are. And they do not care about you. They're suicidal. They don't care about themselves. They don't care about their co-defendants. And this is literally the implosion of the whole gang stalking system. This is why it does not pay to serve Satan. In fact, it costs you. It costs a lot. This is the P.O.C. It is currently 6 p.m. where the sun is documented rising right here at the same venue. Alrighty, this is what you are familiar with. This is the same Ontario Civic Center. This is the African-American female who's going to prison, gang stalking me with the U.S. military, using helicopters, terrorizing me, stalking and harassing me, and then wearing a security uniform that's maliciously targeting with the U.S. military that thinks that it has the people of the state covered as domestic terrorists that are cloaking themselves as merely employees. But the employee status is relevant to systematic monitoring, and that is federal prison. She's doing so, stalking under the fake sun at 6:10 p.m. It's currently 6:02 p.m. The entity is, and this is captured on May 6, 2026. It is May 7th in the morning at 7:05 a.m. where I'm using the gang stalkers of Securitas as an example, where the fake sun is rising and setting. This is where I'm at right now, where the fake sun is present at 7 a.m., where the U.S. military are showing you, which is very foolish conduct because they're going to be subject to mental examinations, as are the people of the state that are engaging what are utilizing minor children in the psychopathic pattern of conduct, the sexually violent pattern of conduct, the pattern of conduct with regard to what is murdering people and engaging in treason with those outside of the United States. This is what the people of the state are doing under a fake sun. The entity is engaging in this while I am showing you and reminding you about what is present at this venue. This is where you see the demon possessed under the age of majority. This is Exhibit A. They're gang stalking families, gang stalking minors, vagina monitors under the age of majority, stalking and trained in stalking and not looking at you, addressing you, nor do they have to. This is the evidence, okay? This is the entity's pattern of conduct. This is what demons practice. Oh, I'm not addressing you, and if I don't look like I'm stalking you, whatever that's supposed to look like, then you are mentally ill. That's the U.S. military, the homosexuals that are stalking in commercial airline companies, with commercial airline planes, flying over all the defendants that are going to be prosecuted, exposing everybody, and they're demons. They're unfit to be in the military. They're mentally ill, as are the people of the state are fit to be isolated from the rest of the American public. That's where United Airlines just committed what are acts of treason right before your eyes. This is a threat to the American public, and this is all over my little old my Google account, just a little old Google account. You know why? Because of how probative, because of how explosive, how truthful the evidence that I'm showing you is. They're willing to go to prison because that's exactly where they're going. They're being committed. They're being put in mental institutions. They're being subject to martial law. They're willing to go through that because of a Google account. Michael GERKEN, Mike LORENZ, Alan D. WAPNER, Jim Bowman, Julia Gu, Ronald Loveridge, all of those on the Ontario board, all of those on Otif El Khadi, the so-called CEO of the Ontario, those are all terrorists. They're being prosecuted. They're being federally prosecuted in concert with the corporate entities themselves, these companies. That is the entire city of Ontario. You are no mayor when you are looking at the evidence of the supernatural environment that is conducive to surveillance. Okay? Paul Leon's a sex offender, and he engages in sexual violence in ways in which you would never fathom. You could never imagine it, and that's why he does it with minor children. Okay? This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:05 p.m. That's federal stalking while the entity sounds sirens as I power on my device with regard to the demon possessed who admit to being inferior, who admit to fear regarding everything that I produce, which is informing you regarding paying attention to what it is that I am publishing on the internet, because Satan doesn't want you to see it. You're going to get it anyway, but Satan is very fearful of you receiving that information. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:05 p.m. This is the entity that is stalking, all right? This is Southwest Airlines. Doing so at the same OVITT Family Community Library. This is all evidence of what is stalking. This is not sunlight. First of all, you're dissecting the crime scene. You saw in the previous video where you saw United Airlines coming from behind. Where are they flying over? A housing community. The housing community of the demons that are over here stalking with their demonic children. They're criminals. They're future felons, future prison inmates. They're sex offenders under the age of 18. Gang stalking. Doing so with the government. That's how, again, that's how lawless, that's how depraved, that's how hopeless the demon-possessed youth are. And what you're looking at is the entity that's engaging in this conduct. So I want you to recall what you witnessed not too long ago. All right, this is the perfect example. First of all, this is UPS. And this is the entity that is hovering through the sky space. They're doing the same thing with United Airlines, doing the exact same thing. This is literally out of bounds regarding the airport, regarding what is any sort of takeoff, regarding what's a public nuisance on its face and in substance, regarding what is asked an entity, while the government is monitoring evidence exposing itself. The government that's humiliated and then replicates that which is asinine because it is in fact humiliated, which is also delusional, psychopathic conduct, okay? You're caught, and so you engage in more of what is idiotic, essentially, because you are humiliated upon being caught. And the consequences are not just people laughing and pointing. The consequences is prison, okay? Mental examinations. But they are nonetheless stalking, doing so with minor kids. College of Laverne University of Law's gang stalking. That's Engineer Light. The entity has the entity that is gang stalking, like you see UPS, and like you just saw, this is the ongoing pattern of conduct. Okay? This is what you're witnessing while they're engaging as though they're feigning a takeoff. This is the thing that I've been describing. You're miles away from the Ontario International Airport. And it's not even a straight shot. The Ontario International Airport is not east of this Ontario City Hall and this senior center and the senior citizen complex, the John Stewart Company and the Wells Fargo. It's not a straight direction east. So they're not coming from the airport. They're not flying east from San Bernardino Airport. They're not flying west from Los Angeles County Airport and then hovering over here. They're not even headed to a destination while they're hovering in the sky space. They're not headed to a destination while they hover over the Ontario City Hall. Those are not planes that are originating from the airport. That's the entity that's engaging what is deviating. necessarily. The commercial airline planes have a place where they belong on the property of the airports, but they're not engaging in a takeoff from the airport where they're hovering here. And that's the thing that I've described over and over again. The asininity that UPS just repeated for you is relevant to the very thing that they publish on the internet, and I will show you that. While the entities putting online regarding that, which is not going to happen, there will be no expansion of the Ontario International Airport. And on the face of Google, this is where you're looking at a plane that's taken off in the sky space above the airport, which is common sense. Okay, this is common sense. This is something that you know when you've been on a plane. We're not driving miles away off the property of the airport, and that's where a pilot then begins to take off, for example, at the Ontario City Hall. That's not what goes on. The entity engages in what is gang stalking me while you're looking at UPS and you're looking at Southwest Airlines. This is a takeoff, okay? And it's completed in the sky space above the airport where the planes originate off the ground and rise rapidly in elevation and proceed to a destination, not to then be followed by hovering miles away and over what is the Ontario City Hall, where no planes are going to create this public nuisance. And this is what the entity is doing while they're engaging in gang stalking me. This is a psychopath that stops in front of me while they're monitoring on my device. This is what the entity is doing while they are gang stalking, engaging in that pattern of conduct, like what you saw earlier. Let's recall that. What Southwest Airlines is engaging in.
This is P.O.C. Southwest Airlines is engaged in what is targeting me. This is the Ovitt family. That's called.
All right, this is the Southwest Airlines that's hovering. You're taking off from the airport. You're taking off, okay? You are rising up in elevation. You're rising up in elevation when you're flying a plane. They're maintaining this elevation throughout the city of Ontario over me. This is an entity that is stalking. This is the U.S. military, by the way. Like I stated before, I'm going to state it again. This was on the face of Google. I opened up my internet. Not only that, never mind this, there will be no expansion. It's going to be shut down. They don't even have the money they stole money from me. That's how they've been improving the city of Ontario as well. This is going to be a real life ghetto. Okay, this is the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct, and they're showing you what a takeoff from an airport looks like. In doing so, while they're talking about what is a fantasy, monitoring me and my on my device, there will be no expansion of the Ontario International Airport. That's a gang stalking sex offender, monitoring vagina, targeting with the U.S. military. No, it's not. And moreover, in this fantasy, this is where an entity is engaging what is conducting an actual takeoff. And at 2500 and 2900 Airport Road, the entity is engaging what is stalking in the path, like what you see again, what I'm capturing in this video, where the entity is flying miles away from the airport and then hovering down like you're engaging in a takeoff, which is psychotic. Psychotic. They're hovering over the top of the building.
Removal of the domestic terrorist Paul Leon, the Ontario City Council, that are engaged in what are treason.
The entities engaging in this under the fake sun, more evidence of targeting. Just showing you the asininity regarding what the entities engaged in, and they do so while they are also hostile, while I laugh at them, while I look at content on the internet and I laugh at these homosexuals. The entity then engages in stalking a helicopter and commercial planes, okay? Outside of what's published on the Ontario International website. Meaning it's not pursuant to any published flight that's headed to a destination. Moreover, you're not headed to any destination when you're hovering over the Ontario City Hall. That is not in alignment with the property. You have not taken off from the airport and then you're hunkering down over 4 miles, which is, again, not a straight shoot west. It is actually what is northwest. So you're flying diagonally to break it down practically, and then you're hovering down, flying in a straight line west over the property. This is the entity that's stalking. And this is an entity that never engaged in criminal conduct that was scrutinized before. Scrutinized based on what is science and based on common sense. And this is also what is going to rule in court. There are things in court that you do not have to maintain any controversy, and it is a matter of common sense how a plane is taken off from the property of the airport. Which everyone, that has mostly everyone, except for many of these ghettos that are born in Ontario, and this is where they're going to expire. They're going to be subject to prison from Ontario. That's the only way they're getting out of Ontario. But those that have flown on planes, which I've traveled the world. This is very basic regarding what the entity is doing, clearly stalking. And this is the unfortunate United States military that's engaging in this literally idiotic behavior. Literally idiotic. Okay, and it's because they are mentally ill. Remember, this is exceeding stalking. You wouldn't even be subject to this common sense scrutiny showing how dumb you are if you weren't so psychotic, because they're exceeding stalking. You already know where I'm at. You're stalking. You're engaging in what is stalking. You have to fly 1,500 planes over me every day because you're monitoring, because you're demons who are mentally ill. You are inherently inferior. They're also inferior while social media exposes what a real takeoff looks like, okay? And it is occurring over the property of the airport, any airport where the planes are planted on the ground, and that's where they originate with regard to taking off from the property. And in that sky space, takeoffs are very rapid, and they're completed over the sky space of that airport. And not 4 miles away are you then hovering down like I'm documenting, where you're over 7 Pizza Hut, where you're over in the giant dollar store at G Street in Euclid, where you're over Woodside Senior Apartments, when you're over Fontana, California, flying over me at Arrow and Sierra Avenue. This is the entity that's, again, engaging in idiotic conduct. I'm going to prosecute them. They're dummies. These are the murderers. These are the vagina monitors. And by the way, on Mother's Day, they've given birth to many demons that are gang stalking. The mentally ill population is going to be subject to martial law. There's not going to be any expansion of this terrorist that is the Ontario International Airport. These people are going to prison. This is P.O.C. It is currently 7:22 p.m. Let's see, P.O.C. Here's my shadow appearing on the wall over here. And here's another shadow you can see. And here's another shadow appearing in the dirt. And here's another shadow right here. This is where the people of the state are stalking at this intersection. The nearest address, 527 East Holt Boulevard. And so are they. They're stalking. That is called stalking in the path. That's a demon. Okay, you need to understand that this is a demon-possessed. This is Satan that's stalking me obsessively. I took a picture of him stalking at Wendy's, and that is Wendy's gang stalking. I'm going to prosecute Wendy's. Wendy's is making money while gang stalking, and they're doing so also in the bathroom. This is the military right here. It's not a star. Okay, this is the U.S. military's criminal pattern of conduct. They're being prosecuted for domestic terrorism. Demons who engage in maintaining a psychopathic environment. It's a direct indication regarding the mental illness that they all suffer from while they're stalkers. License plate 9MPF 317 is a demon. You need to know that. They're also engaged in the criminal conspiracy to murder somebody that they're stalking in the middle of the night. License plate 9RGK 651, the same criminal pattern of conduct with the U.S. military that are not elite at all. They're gang stalking with food stamp collectors. They're gang stalking with the homeless. They're gang stalking with convicts. They're gang stalking with criminals that are engaging in what are pedophilia, having sex with babies. The demons of the U.S. military engage in the same criminal activity, and they're all demons in the impossible light. And they're psychopaths. It's not the product of being a genius, it's the product of being a demon. Stalking in aircrafts, military aircrafts, is demonic. Engaging what is stalking in engineer light is demonic. Stalking as a population is demonic. And this is an entity, I want to be clear, the U.S. government, the city governments and stuff that are maintaining surveillance, they're responsible for the criminal rate. Every rape, every kidnapping, every murder, they're the ones committing it. In concert with the government that's maintaining surveillance, all about it. Knows all about it. P.O.C. Right? These are demons. And that's Union Pacific and engineer light. That's not even the natural sound of the train, and this is not natural light activity. These are the mentally ill. Their mental illness is literally all over the environment. While the mentally ill are stalking, they are stalkers, okay? And they call themselves celebrating Mother's Day. These are demons that give birth to criminals that are monitoring us, okay? Out of these so-called mother's portals, they're giving birth to death. A bunch of demon-possessed psychopaths who are gang stalking us under the age of majority. That is how Satan is engaging in this pattern of conduct. And the U.S. military is targeting with minor children, also having sex with them. Also having sex with those of the same gender. That's what's stalking me in an aircraft that could be easily mistaken as a star. That's not a star. This is the entity that's engaged in that pattern of conduct. And then they use the commercial planes. Okay, that asinity, like you're taking off over Wendy's. Okay, but what's taking off over the El Pollo Loco where Amazon, a demon, is flying in an Amazon plane? I'm gonna prosecute Amazon. That's engaged to act like you're landing there at Ontario Village Shopping Center when the takeoffs, like the internet shows, are taking off and landings are occurring over the property of the airport. This is the entity that's engaged in that. This is that asinine conduct, the stalking with the light activity. Nothing other than demons. Nothing other than demons. In commercial vehicles, in establishments that are gang stalking, demons that are stalking with light. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:09 p.m. This is the federal prosecution of the U.S. government that's engaging in surveillance. This light activity is directly indicating criminal surveillance, meaning they're not strangers, meaning the police don't conduct investigations, meaning they're not engaged in law enforcement, they're engaged in what is stalking. They follow people around. They know who you are. And they're stalkers who are lying about it. That's also why they're stalkers. This is an entity that's engaged in that together, and it is sanctioned by the U.S. government. The government is being prosecuted as the treasonous, disloyal betrayers of the U.S. that they are, engaged in what is sexual violence, kidnapping, and murders, and theft with those that are outside of the United States. A whole distinct basis of prosecuting under Article 3, Section 3 for treason. All right, these demons will be in this country, and they're going to be prosecuted as the enemies that they are. This is Union Pacific. You hear the sound of that train, I'm going to prosecute that company. 8VWR106. Criminal facilitation. This is a psychopath. Their mental illness by their behavior. Demon possession. The U.S. military, they're not going to be. This is mental illness. They're stalkers. And they belong in mental institutions. That's where they're going. They're engaged in criminal monitoring right in your face. And they're stalking. Okay? That's P.O.C. And these are the demons that maintain ongoing flight. Why are they engaged in that idiotic behavior flying over the senior citizen complex and 1,700 planes, like I stated? Because they're monitoring. That's what's behind the mentally ill behavior, which you can see personified through multiple shadows all over the ground, through the demons that are stalking with light. Well, they're engaging in what is not joyriding. They're stalking as a population. They're pathetic. These are not humans. They're demons. This is P.O.C. This is the United States. This is Southern California. This is the entire state of California. What do you think is sitting in the position as governor? Because this is it. A vagina monitor. A psychopath. A demon. All right, this is the P.O.C. It is currently 9:11 p.m. This is a stalker. Waiting for me at the end of the street, by the way. That's why the Ontario police are being committed, and so are the people of the state, and so are the homosexuals of the U.S. military. Okay? This is the entity that's engaging in what is gang stalking, and that audible activity is a direct indicator regarding the mental illness by those that are stalking. Okay? That's not even the train. These are demons, and they're engaged in psychotic level of stalking. That's what Ontario Police Department are, and they're using police vehicles. Mike LORENZ is not keeping a job. He's not even going to stay outside of a mental institution. They're being committed. 9WYX868 is gang stalking me while the people of the state are engaged in what are lying in wait conduct so that they can touch on me with light, like people that eat their feces. They're going to be committed. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:07 p.m. while the U.S. military has the mentally ill gang stalking me on its behalf. And this is the prosecution where the mentally ill are being prosecuted for treason in the U.S. P.O.C. So in case you did not know, this is what homosexuals do when they are intimidated, especially by a woman that is embarrassing them. These are supposed to be military trained men. They're not men. They're not even heterosexuals. They are married to women and they present as though they're heterosexual, but these are homosexuals that get in helicopters because that's how insecure and intimidated by me they are. And that's also because they're demons. They're not even humans. Okay? But flying over me by helicopter, that's directly indicative of what the Ontario police are doing in the vehicle at the C Street turn circle, and what the entity is doing, which you already know, under a fake sun with commercial planes, and what the U.S. military are doing in military aircrafts that resemble stars in the sky. This is the entity doing this for the second time today. All right? Mike LORENZ is going to be sat down in a mental institution. Okay? And this is for the benefit of the public. Okay? He is engaging in what is psychotic behavior as a pattern of conduct. And this mental illness, born of what is his secretive lifestyle that he shares with the homosexuals that are stalking me in concert with him, engaging in what is conduct that makes no logical sense whatever, serves no legitimate purpose, and is absurdly bizarre. Okay, the entities engaging in this because they are in fact ready to be committed. This is what's going to happen. They're going to be federally prosecuted for treason, and they're also going to be permanently removed from law enforcement. You will not be in law enforcement suffering this level of severe mental instability. The people of the state are stalking me with light because the mentally ill are stalking in the sky space together with them, and vice versa. Okay? This is the P.O.C. But I just want to be clear. This is what homosexuals do.
Homosexual males that are intimidated by you will get into a helicopter because that makes them feel like they're doing something when everybody actually is pointing and laughing at them. But they're trying to contain that laughter because this is a serious matter. But it is very pathetic, and it's also funny at the same time because they're losing in the helicopter. Okay? This is the entity that you're going to prison for, and you're going to be committed for stalking in a helicopter. All right? But this is what gay homosexuals do, trying to compensate for the lack of masculinity, for the lack of testosterone, for the lack of capability, for the lack of competence, for the lack of sanity, okay? Because I have humiliated what is a race of people who are demon possessed, all right? And they present themselves as though they're elite and sophisticated and competent and capable. They are none of those things. That's why they are stalking me in helicopters, in addition to the fact that they serve Satan, okay? This is the absence of masculinity. This is the absence of any sort of legitimate conduct. This is an admission. I have the U.S. military admitting to me that they are subject to what are prison for treason and stalking. This has never, ever happened before. This is the entity that's going to be prosecuted for that. Okay, this is P.O.C. This is the entity that is obsessed with my vagina. All of the pattern of conduct is relevant while the entity is, again, stalking and pacing in a helicopter. This is literally the evidence. This is diagnosis via prosecution. Okay, this is prosecuting. This is what Michael Dorsey's doing. This is what Marcelo Blanco, Darren Goodman, Mike Lorenz. This is that same pattern of conduct. They are all together being diagnosed while they're being prosecuted, sharing an identical pattern of conduct. These are not men. Okay, they're demons, and moreover, you need to know that they're homosexuals. And they are intimidated by me, a woman that is together simultaneously prosecuting and humiliating all of them. And because they don't know what else to do, they climb into a helicopter to fly over my head, and they engage in what is the bizarre conduct of flying in circles. This is the entity that's engaging in that behavior pattern, and it's pursuant to what is stalking. This is the P.O.C. It is currently, while the people of the state are stalking with the U.S. government, those are the ones that are going to prison. Those are the ones that have no protection of the Constitution. They're not private citizens. They've engaged in levying war against an American citizen, and I won. Okay? They're going to prison. They're going to be committed. They're being deported. They're losing custody of children. They're going to be prosecuted as of record as terrorists, and that's going to change every aspect of their lives as they know it. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:13 p.m. All right, this is the people of the state. This is documentation regarding prosecuting the entity, generally speaking. They're stalking with the demons, these homosexuals that are flying in circles by helicopters. So you'll see the video and the images together. This is the mental illness. They have kids. They are engaging in what is gang stalking with the military. And this is what they're doing. This is everyday conduct for the people of the state. Everyday conduct. This is domestic terrorism. This homosexual over here is gang stalking. He goes and sits down while they're flying in circles over me. This is a demon. This is P.O.C. This is a demon-possessed person. And this is the entity that's engaged in that conduct. And this is what they do concerning my vagina. They also want to be next to me while I'm nude in the bathroom. Sex offenders stalking in the middle of the night with the entity that's flying in circles. They're mentally ill. And that's what makes up the U.S. military, a bunch of homosexuals who are mentally ill. And that is the people of the state as well. The demon-possessed that are engaged in what is ongoing psychopathic behavior. And it will not change the fact that they're being prosecuted for treason and that they remain homosexuals who are intimidated by me getting in helicopters, which is never going to make you a man. It's also not going to make you heterosexual. It's also not making you masculine. And this is another demon stalking in the middle of the night, a psychopath. Okay, an obsessed stalker. This is P.O.C. And you are mentally ill while you're stalking somebody looking in the opposite direction, and you are obsessed with my breathing pattern. That's what's over here creeping in the dark, okay, as black as the asphalt. Gang stalking with the demons that are stalking in planes and helicopters. This is P.O.C. It is currently 11:01 p.m. where demons that are engaged in what a murder. They engage in rape. They engage in kidnapping, pedophilia. They're engaged in what is stealing my identity. These are the demons that are engaged in stalking on the roads and the highways, stalking with engineer light, and they want to be next to me. This is how obsessed with me they are. This is a picture of that. And this is why they're flying in circles in helicopters. Okay? This is the entity that's engaged in that pattern of conduct. It's no wonder they're sleeping outside. It's not because they're being targeted like me. It's because they're monitoring vagina. Vagina that would never welcome them. This is the P.O.C. It is currently 11:02 p.m. where the people of the state, they belong in the cells that they're going in. That's where they belong. They're animals. This is P.O.C.